If I was newly diagnosed with herpes today and I was dropped on this planet with no confidence and no plan, this is exactly what I would do to overcome my diagnosis and also the things I wouldn't do. Now, I would probably break this into a simple 3-step process. And surprisingly enough, it was this 3-step process that I figured out on my own that allowed me to get to where I am today. And if you were to do these out of order, or you skip around, or you don't apply all 3 of them and you sort of are still missing one of them, you're never going to have success. And the first thing I would do is get actually properly educated. So you go to your doctor when you get diagnosed and they tell you nothing. Oh, it's super common. It's not a big deal. Take some pills. You'll be fine. And you're left being like, but sir, my life is over. What does this mean? And then you go on Reddit and you see all these stories of my life is over, or like I've passed it to 17 people because I'm careless, or I'm having all these outbreaks, and you really see that it's an echo chamber of misinformation, myths, toxicity, chaos. Nobody who's doing well with their life is on Reddit posting about it. They're out there living their life, which you definitely can do. So the first thing I would do is understand transmission. How do I keep partners safe, and how do I reduce my risk of transmission? How do I understand prevalency so I can figure out how common herpes actually is? Am I the only person out here, or is it more common than not even being diagnosed? And in addition to that, I would also look into the stigma, because I tie these two together: education, knowledge, and the herpes stigma. Because if I was holding on to this for the rest of my life, this label, this shame, this, rain cloud over my head, for a silly little virus that most of the world has, that's not going to serve me. And I think it's hard to detach from a stigma when we don't know the root of it. So the first thing, in addition to getting educated on herpes itself, is looking into the stigma. Where did it come from? What does it mean? Do I have to hold on to this? Can I somehow distance myself from the herpes stigma so that I can go from herpes meaning something to herpes just simply being this neutral virus, this health condition, this thing that for the most part, and in a lot of people, doesn't even cause any symptoms. I always say that herpes is a mental health disorder because I get people reaching out, coaching clients or things like that, that are just diagnosed with a blood test. Now, some blood tests can be a little bit iffy, but with a genuinely positive blood test and no symptoms, people should not be having crazy thoughts, life-ending thoughts, unless there's this huge stigma around a virus. So clearing up that first step is I would get knowledgeable for myself, increase my own confidence based on how to actually navigate life with this virus, and I would look into the stigma and say, is this serving me, or can I put it to the side, not buy into it, let other people play the game of buying into the stigma, and I'll just be over here in a state of not ignorance. Which moves into our second thing. And our second one would be getting my confidence and getting my self-image worked out. So the reason I put these in a specific order is because without the initial knowledge, without that baseline of information, I can't actually feel confident in myself or when dating others and communicating. Because if I go on a date and I'm kind of confident, but I meet someone and they're like, yeah, so what does this mean for us? How can we keep safe? And I haven't done that first step of getting educated. I can't just spread out and say, yeah, transmission is low when there's no symptoms. There might be a small risk at different parts of the time if it's asymptomatically shedding. Here's what I do to be safe. It's not been a problem in the past. That can come across with good energy, and it's going to make them feel more comfortable than if you're like, I haven't really done much research. I've been too afraid. You don't want to avoid it. You don't want to deny it. You don't want to put it over here, because eventually you're going to have to take it back and work on yourself. So getting educated on that, going into the confidence, and then really asking myself, what do I mean when I have herpes? What does it mean? Does it mean I'm a dirty, disgusting slut who slept around? Does it mean that I just get cold sores down here? Does it mean that I have type 1 down there and I'm just as normal as people with type 1 up here? Or do I take the ultimate stigma of type 2? Or, does it mean that I'm a slut? Or does it mean that I should be judged? What does it mean? And oftentimes at the beginning of your diagnosis, it means a whole lot. It means that you made a mistake, you're immoral, you went against what God wanted, or you were just careless or ruthless, or you should have wrapped up even if you did wrap up, or you got it from your boyfriend or your girlfriend and they didn't even cheat on you, and now society says you're gross because you have the H word. No. take some time, face your diagnosis, get a journal, write down some things, write down how you feel about yourself having herpes. And it may take some vulnerable soul searching or some diving deep into your psyche and really asking yourself, like, are the things I'm telling myself worthwhile? Are the things that I'm telling myself about having herpes serving me? And are my habits and actions and thoughts keeping me stuck? Or am I trying to align myself with a version of me that is thriving? Because that's the key too. We oftentimes stay stuck because we keep acting like the version of us that will be always stuck, instead of saying, no, I need to figure out, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I feel like an imposter, how I can act, how the ideal version of myself that's thriving would act, and then embody that. So I would critically think about everything, self-analyze how I feel about myself having herpes, and get to a point, whether it's weeks, whether it's months, hopefully it's not years, where herpes simply means nothing to you. And the actual goal and the end result of this ends up being that nobody else can judge you or shame you or say anything to you unless you truly believe it about yourself. So what I mean by this is, I can't be judged for having herpes because the things that I say to myself and the meaning I put onto my diagnosis isn't reinforced by external perspectives. So if I meet some girl and I tell her and she's like, ew, you're so gross, you're such a dirty person who slept around, and you probably, blah, blah, blah. I know deep down that none of that is true. And of course, it's impossible to be totally immune to any sort of criticism. But really, you don't ever have to be judged or ashamed or offended by something that isn't true about you. Let someone else live in their ignorant state. Let them buy into the herpes stigma, which you've detached from in step 1, and realize that if you're disclosing herpes to someone and they're getting offended and gross, they're probably going to get it from someone else, and karma's going to get them. Which then leads into number 3, which is actual dating and actual disclosure. And if you're still watching this so far and it seems a little bit overwhelming, this is what I help clients with. I'm going to leave a video about how I can help you. First link in the description box. But getting back to step number 3, it's actually learning how to disclose. So there's no perfect time and there's no, perfect saying. And the reason why those steps are in order is because the person that you become by step 3 doesn't have a hard time disclosing. Disclosure becomes effortless when you have the right energy, when you simply frame it as a mutual conversation about sexual health, and you are backing your knowledge up with true facts about it. You are backing your confidence up with good affirmations about yourself. So you cannot be judged for it, and you have the information to go into it with, and you understand that this person you're disclosing to could have it themselves and not even know, and that the right people are going to align with you, and you unfortunately might have to meet some people who are not interested in you in order for you to find people who are interested in you. A lot of us stay stuck. We never date, we never disclose, and we never ever break that limiting belief in our head that we can actually date and find a partner. My first disclosure was successful, and I want to urge you, if you're watching this and have never disclosed before, why can't your first be successful? And if you get some negative reaction or something, don't take it to heart. That's someone else buying into their own story about herpes, and they don't obviously value honesty or transparency or something as insignificant but as common as herpes is. They're going to find it somewhere else, whether they get it or not. So when you frame this as a mutual conversation, when you have the right energy, when you reflect it back into the mirror, positivity, acceptance, confidence, you're going to keep moving forward instead of getting derailed when you have a negative reaction when it comes to dating. So those are the 3 steps. Do them in order. And if you do want some extra help implementing these, putting them into practice, working with me, check the first link in the description. See you guys in the next video.